Welcome to week 6. We are getting into some of the more technical things in After Effects and exploring some more creativity. This week we're talking about parenting, text, kinetic type, and a couple other tools along the way. So, parenting. We're going to start with parenting. This is a tool that is very beneficial. It's used in a lot of different software, but let me kind of show you what we've got here. So let's say you can bring in, do whatever, but I've got this shape. All right? Again, this could be an image, a drawing, whatever you want it to be. But let's say I have animated this. I'm just going to do a very simple animation here. Okay, and let's do maybe a couple of in-betweens. And up. And if we haven't talked about it, this is, the line of which your object is animating on. The reason it's not connected, remember, is because of that anchor point, that pivot point. My pivot point is further away from my object. So you'd want to use the pan behind tool if you want it to be set. But what we can do is we can actually click on these points here, just like this was the pen tool, and you can change the depth and the angle at which this is traveling. Swoop. Okay, so let's say I wanted this to be less of a bloop down. I can bring this up, and now you can see it kind of stays across. So we can bring that back down. Okay. Point is, I have an animation, right? Let's say it could be very complicated, it could be very simple. Now, I want to actually have an object be attached to this. So let's say I have a rocket ship or something, and I have just created I'm actually going to use a different shape. I created a window. And maybe I have this window here, and I've worked really hard on this. This is actually a creation that I made in Illustrator. I have a character looking out the window, blah, blah, blah. We want this to follow along with my spaceship, right? It's the window. So what we can do is called parenting. Now, the vocab for it is parent and child relationship. Basically, whatever the parent does, the child will do as well, but the child can also move on its own. So the way that I always think about it is imagine a parent and a toddler crossing the street. Okay? The parent grabs the toddler's hand and pulls. The toddler has to cross the street with the parent. They're going to move together, but at the same time, the toddler could be kicking and screaming. They could be waving to their friends. They could be doing somersaults, but they're attached to the parent and they're going to move. Okay? So if we look down in After Effects, we have this parent and link. If you don't see this, you can right mouse click and go to Columns, Parent, and Link. So right now these say none because they're separate layers doing their own thing. But I want shape layer 2, which is, I'm going to just rename so that we can kind of tell. This is the window. And I'll just rename this spaceship. Okay. I want the parent to be the spaceship, and I want the child to be the window, because again, I want the window to follow the spaceship. I don't want to have to hand animate, go through, figure out everything that I did, especially if you have a complicated animation. So what we can do is in this parent and link, we have what's called a pick whip, this little like twirl here. And what you can do is pick whip, click, and drag from your child layer onto the parent. So now it says parent and link. This window is parented to spaceship. You can also just lower down and click spaceship here. It depends on how many layers you have and which one you prefer. But now our window goes perfectly with our spaceship. Now, if we want to break this, we can go to None. Wherever you have this set up to start, so let's say I've got this window below the spaceship or whatever, if I then go to parent it, it's always going to remain at that position away from it. So you want to make sure before you pick whip or parent that you get it set up however you want it to be. So then I can parent. Now at the same time, I could add some rotation to the window. So I know this is like a 6-second animation. So maybe I'm going to have this do 4 spins. Now, why does that look so weird? Because our anchor point, remember? So if I take my pan behind tool, I'm going to unparent so that I can adjust this freely. I'm going to center that. I'll add the parent back. Now I will add the rotation. We'll just do 4 times, or not 34. We don't want to get nauseous here. But now you can see the window is following the parent and still doing its own thing. All right. The easiest way, let's say I wanted something to be parented and then break the relationship. Let's say after 6 seconds the window falls off or whatever it is. I would just go to the 6-second mark, click on my window layer. I'll go to Edit, Split Layer. Now you can see I've got window, window 2. These are the same exact thing. If I were to have had more keyframes set, they would have stayed along here. This is taking it and just splitting it. I can actually break the parent relationship here, and now if I, let's say, animate the position or something, I can have this boop, fall off on its own. So going along with the parent, going along with the parent, and boop. Okay, so this is a really helpful tool to have in your toolkit, especially, you know, to kind of fulfill some of the things that you guys have been wanting to do. Okay, we'll get more kind of helpful tools like this each week. There are a lot that I want you to start building up. In the next couple of weeks too, I'll also post a little page going over, just kind of listing every tool that we have, because I know sometimes when you're working, it's like, I don't even remember what we were doing or working on. All right, so parenting. Then we're going to get into text and text effects. So I'm just going to delete these, keep things clean. Text. Text in After Effects is very similar to text in any Adobe product. We have a horizontal type tool, and if you hold down, we have a vertical type tool. If you click and let go, our type tool is started. I'm just going to do my name. Same rules that we've been working with before apply. There's an anchor point. We can use our pan behind tool, you know, to center it, do whatever you want. If we twirl down, we have our transform properties, just like any other layer that we've been working with. We also have this text up here, and we have what's called animate. We'll get to that in a little bit, but that's another option for your text. Before I get too carried away with this, I want you to be aware that we have a character panel over here. So you can go to Window, Character, if you don't see it. This allows us to change the font, the size, the style, bold, whatever, the color, your leading, your kerning, your tracking, just like everything in the past in other software. We do have a paragraph panel as well, so if you're dealing with a large grouping of text, you should all kind of be aware of these character and panel options. If you have any questions with this, do not hesitate to reach out. I'd be happy to go over them. But since they are kind of the same as all Adobe products, I'm going to kind of go over that a little bit faster. Okay? If you want to kind of make sure you're centered here, you can go to Layer and then Transform, and then you can go Fit to Comp With. Now this will be perfectly centered and filling the space. You can also see that we have Layer, Transform, Fit to Comp Height, all of that. Now the cool thing is this isn't squashing or stretching. So you can see it's going all the way across. But this is a nice way to easily animate something that, you know, is the comp height or whatever you're kind of working with. So we could animate the position. And then if I hold Shift, keeps it in a straight line, drag it all the way over. Now when we're dealing with animating text, it's a little challenging because you want to keep it interesting, you want to keep it moving, but we have to make sure that we can still read the text. So, you know, sometimes you may animate something and be like, okay, well, that was kind of slow, I need to speed it up or I need to slow it down, but that's why we can move our keyframes. You can always go to View and Show Grid if you want a grid. You can go to Snap to Grid if you want, View, Snap to Grid if your grid is on, and then we always have View Show Rulers or Command R. So just like we have in any other program, you can click in the ruler and drag down, or click in the side ruler and drag out to create ruler lines. So alignment still is very important, even if we're dealing in moving text. Okay. So I'm going to get to these text effects in a second. I want to kind of preview what we're doing this week. We are going to be dealing with kinetic type. Kinetic, moving type. So I want you to find a song, a poem, a song lyric, a piece of text, a movie quote. Type it out in Illustrator. Pick the font choices and color that fit the text and draw attention to important words. Think about a theme or idea that you'll want to show with accompanying graphics. Once you have that completed, think about what you would like to do to turn it into kinetic type. Will the pieces come from different areas, rotate, fade? How will your animated type play with your animated graphics? Rendered video, due Sunday. So what kind of is kinetic typography? I think a lot of people think of like the Ford truck commercials where the words come down and like slam and it's like a hard, sharp-edged text that show the Fords are built tough or whatever. There's a little typography tutorial up here. A lot of lyric videos are kinetic type, right? Because we have to make these words move. Now this is adding an additional timing with the sound, which we will get into sound later, but I want you to focus more on being able to read it and matching your ideas with graphics. So you are using typography, but you also are going to bring in additional graphics. This is why I'm giving you the whole week to do this. Think about color. You can use base shapes, you can create characters, you can create things for specific words, whatever you want. You know, and if you have a more serious piece, maybe you do it slower, more upbeat, it's faster. Okay, so even just how they have the do going down. So little kinetic type here. And this is what I'm talking about with additional graphics. So you can look through some of these examples. I put a lot just so you can kind of get ideas. Now, don't get me wrong, some of these are very complicated, some of these are more extreme. I don't expect from you guys, but I want you to pay attention.
Frost is good for an orange tree.
I want you to pay attention to the different things that they're using and think about, okay, well, how are they doing that? You may not have all of the tools yet. You can feel free to reach out if you're like, how did they do something like this, or how would I do that? But you can definitely take text and graphics, make it move, rotate, scale, bring it in from the top, the bottom, the left, the right, etc. Play around with where your anchor point is. See, this is kind of stuff that you guys can definitely do. Think about your backgrounds, all of that, okay? I have these couple of articles just going over how to add text into your composition, and then we have text presets, okay? So apply and edit pre-built text animations. So I wouldn't say make your entire piece these presets, but they're definitely a good place to start. So if we look, let me go back to After Effects here. Let's do this. To hide your guidelines, it's Command or Control and then semicolon. And then to hide the rulers, Command R, Control R brings back, obviously. Okay, so again, we'll just write my name. Let's spell my name right, I don't know. Okay. Make this a little bit bigger, hold Shift to make sure we're not ruining any proportions. All right, so if I go over to Effects and Presets up here, or you can go to Window, Effects and Presets, you'll notice there are a lot. Okay, now some of these are green screening effects, some of these are color correction, blur, sharpen. These are kind of like effects in Photoshop, but we can do them with video. We'll get into some of these later, but feel free to look through them and see what you've got here. If we go into animation presets, and if you remember one but you don't know where to find it, you can always type something. So if I hit text, you can see different text ones. But animation presets, check the text folder. Okay, so I'm going to move my time slider to the beginning. Let's look at some animate in here. I just double clicked, or you can click and drag it down. But if I hit play, we can see that is central spiral. Now, remember I talked about this animate, you can see these aren't diamonds because I need to twirl this down until I can actually see them. So we can see the spiral and the fade in. Okay, now this is dealing with opacity and all that. Let's say, you know, I like how it fades in, but I want it to stop spinning earlier. I can always just take that keyframe and move it. Okay. You can take the spiral and delete it if you don't like it. I can delete the fade in. Now I'm back to normal. Fade up characters. Let's see what this is. Okay, so we can twirl down animator 1, range selector. Now all of these things are animatable. So this is saying, where do you want to start? So if I go to that first keyframe here, make sure you're perfectly centered, because anytime you put a keyframe, it'll just either add another one or put it right on top. But I can move this over and I can say, actually, you know what? I want to start this animation with just Jen. So Jen will be here, and then if Nifer will come up. Okay, so this is kind of saying, where do you want to start the animation? Where do you want to end it? We don't really need to do an end because we're going all the way to the end of our word. And then of course you can still animate this with our 5 transforms on top of all this. Okay, So tons and tons of options right here. Again, maybe start with one of them, think about it. We can always, let's say I want to animate this. I'm going to move the anchor point. You can always have it like rotating down or hitting the ground. The possibilities are really wide open for this, so it's going to take a lot of thought. So that's why I recommend that you write out your paragraph, poem, song lyric, whatever first in Illustrator, so you can really see all of the words, decide what you're going to use to highlight, what graphics go along with it, and then just start basically and then start adding the details. So maybe I know I want Jennifer to come down and then a picture of me is going to come flying in, whatever it is. But you're storyboarding, okay? If you want to do a complete storyboard, I would recommend it, but completely up to you. But get all your ideas out first so that you can kind of see what you like, and then you can make it happen. Okay, so, for instance, let's say I start with this here, and then I'm going to do rotate, position, and opacity. Maybe at the beginning, I want all of these to be here, but my opacity is off. Then by 4 seconds, I want to rotate this down. The opacity is not off all the way. At 2 seconds, I want it to be full opacity. I'm just going to go back here and make sure this is 0. Okay, now that's fine and dandy, right? But it's a little slow, and I would actually like it to speed up as it goes along. So maybe I'll take this and move this up a little bit. Okay, so maybe at the halfway mark we are here. And I like that at the halfway, so I'm going to click these diamonds here to add a key so that I know at this point in time it's right here. And then for the second half, I really want to speed it up, so I'm going to bring these closer. It's looking still a little slow. I've gotten some questions too. So like when I hit spacebar, this green bar is what's rendered, and this is what it's trying to figure out as it goes. So you may find that yours isn't really playing to time, or you're not sure what's going on. What we can always do is take this work area and make it smaller and hit spacebar and let it kind of cycle through a few times. I'm going to make all of this a little faster. Okay. Now, with animation, we could have this actually go in the rotation down a little bit further. And then we can have it pop back up. And then settle right down. Okay, so again, little things to think about. Try to have fun with this. Think about different ways you can bring in letters, bring interest to certain words, color, composition. You guys are graphic designers, so, or studio artists, or whatever this is for you. Think about being creative. Let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to seeing your final kinetic type.